All right. Today we're going to be doing the Music Appreciation Timeline Project Final. I'm Gavin Seahigh, and this is my Music Appreciation Final in Minecraft. All right, let's go. So the first era we're going to look at is the medieval era. It lasted from about 476 to 1450, although with pretty much all of these eras, it could be a little different depending on where you get your sources from. So let's see what's going on here. Oh, the bubonic plague. Yeah, that was pretty bad. It killed a ton of people. We got Pope Gregory the First, a big figure during the time, and he's responsible for Gregorian chant, which is some of the earliest written known music. Looks like he's probably writing some there as we speak. Kings and peasants at the time. Got the king here, dressed in gold. Peasant, just in some peasant clothes. And also the French court. French court was also a system at the time in France, relied on kings and all that sort of stuff. What's going on over here? 95 theses on a door. Oh, that sounds like the Protestant Reformation. Yeah, that was kind of a big deal at this time, and we'll kind of see that come back again later. Also, at the time, the printing press. Uh, Although you could say the printing press kind of came after the medieval era, you could almost argue that it is what actually brought us out of the medieval era. But with the printing press, you could just make books and all sorts of writings at incredibly efficient speeds. It was quite amazing. Uh, Monophony. So a lot of songs at the time were just one note. As we'll listen here. These two singers, they're both singing on the same note. I actually can't hear the game right now, so I really hope it made the noises. But if it didn't, then you just gotta trust they're singing the same note. Hildegard von Bingen, she was a nun who did a lot of good stuff for music way back in the day. And that's the medieval era. All right, the Renaissance from about 1400 to, well, it's supposed to be 1600, but I forgot the one. Let's see what's going on here. So we got some notable figures. We got John Dunstable, an English composer. He actually didn't have the bubonic plague or anything. I just found a really hideous picture of him online, so I gave him a zombie face. But he was actually a human. I don't think he got the plague or anything. And then Johannes Occam. He was the guy at the time. He was the composer of the time. Um, Very good. What do we got going over here? Of course, the Renaissance artists, painters, sculptors, Raphael, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Donatello in their signature Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle colors. Some paintings behind them. Masquerades. Masquerades were sort of like a party where people all had masks. And that was pretty popular at the time. So this guy's got a mask on. He's drinking something, proud of party, buy something good. Humanism, this was more of a belief as opposed to like a god, a belief in a god, more of a looking introspectively at yourself, kind of finding power in yourself, perhaps. And the printing press, again, you could kind of argue it was in this era. It's kind of what brought about the Renaissance era because then information and writings could be done exponentially faster. The transfer of information became very fast. All right, let's keep going. The Baroque era lasted from about 1600 to 1750. See what's going on here. We got the Catholic Mass. Missionaries during this time, Catholic missionaries, were very prevalent, really spreading that idea. And the Catholic Mass became a very culturally influential thing all across Europe. We have Vivaldi. Uh, he was a big composer and he was also a Catholic priest, so it makes sense. He was right next to the Catholic Mass. The 30 Years' War, this is where we're going to see Protestant and Catholic ideas kind of clash. At least that's how it started, but it turns into kind of a big political fiasco all across Europe. Big war. All right, we have J.S. Bach, John Johann Sebastian Bach. He wrote tons of stuff. He was very popular of the day. Also, G.F. Handel. They both wrote lots of operas and oratorios, which were kind of a toned down version of an opera. And Bach's children. What? Um, hello? All right, so yeah, Bach had 20 children, which is just a lot of children. Press before leaving. Oh, sorry, Bach. Anyway, the Rococo period came after the Baroque. It's kind of a transitional period, in my opinion. It only lasted about 25 years. You could say more, as with all of these, you could say more or less or anything. But it's kind of marked by Bach's death. And then elaborate ornamentation was big at the time. People were just kind of chilling, after the 30 Years' War, after Bach's death. They were just kind of basking in life, having a good time, wearing fancy clothes. And not really a whole ton happened during this period. I mean, it was only about 25 years. But it did end with the classical, which you could also say started 1750 or started 1775 to 1820, or you could say went longer, as with all of this. I'll see what's going on here. Influential figures. We have Immanuel Kant. He was a big time philosopher of the day. He's got a book and quill. I'm sure he wrote down some good ideas. Ludwig von Beethoven, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and Haydn. These were all three very, very big figures of the day and even still very influential today as well. There were a lot of symphonies. Symphonies were big of the day, and they were all very big writers of them. Very good stuff. You also have Enlightenment, which was a very reasonable, lots of thinking, lots of data-driven thinking. We weren't thinking just through the soul or through nature. We were really looking at the data, looking at the science, and that's where we get that from. I'm just gonna make sure my audio is working here for a moment. All right, all right. Okay. I just didn't want to get really far into this recording only to find out it's not working. That would kind of suck. But it sounds like we're good. Next is the Romantic era. From it's about 100 years, 1800 1900. So we are very quickly approaching the modern day. We kind of rolled through that. The Romantic era, organicism. You can see. I mean, made the floor dirt in here, kind of an earth material. And that was very big of the day. People were really big into the earth in the Romantic era. They were in awe of the mountains and the seas, and they wanted to write about this and really look into the soul. They were kind of tired of all this enlightenment, data driven thinking. They just wanted to bask in the glory of humanity and the earth and what have you. We have the abolition of slavery. I put a cake here because that's a good thing. We want to be happy about that. Fairy tales, fantastical stories, and getting very passionate and all sorts of cool emotions, but kind of a fairy looking thing here to represent that at the time. We have Chopin, who was a big musical sort of guy at the time. R. Wagner also wrote lots of good music. Have Berlioz, who wrote the Symphonie Fantastique, which right here, you can see he's working on it right now. I'll let him get to that. It was program music, which means that it followed a story or had a reason for it, as many symphonies were typically. And this is supposed to absolute music, which is kind of just music for the sake of music, often follows some sort of form. We have Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky still obviously a very well-known name today. Wrote lots of good music. And F. Schubert, who wrote German lieds. These were songs based on art, like poetry or something. And he wrote, I think, about 600 of them, and was considered to be very good at it. So we'll move on around the corner. We're into jazz, into the 1900s. Again, moving very quickly through the years. You could say jazz has an earlier beginning, kind of 1910s, and even it brings a lot of aspects from the 1800s as well. But really, the 1910s, 20s is when it kind of got its mainstream appeal. Walking bass, got some shoes here to show that. Walking bass was a sort of style in the bass line where it was kind of constantly moving up and down, very active bass line. Nothing crazy, but just constantly active. Charlie Parker, a figure of bass or bass jazz. These are all jazz figures. A lot of jazz figures. A lot of people involved. Charlie Parker, kind of a bebop saxophonist, along right bebop next to him, and bebop was like a see, I have it written down here. It was kind of like a fast, complex jazz. There was a lot going on in bebop, as opposed to smooth jazz or something. Louis Armstrong, trumpet legend. Scott Joplin, huge for ragtime. The Entertainer, Maple Leaf Rag, very popular pieces even today. Scott Joplin was really on the forefront of that. We have cool jazz, marked with some ice. Cool jazz was kind of the opposite of bebop. It was a lot more relaxed. It was smooth. It was cool. Benny Goodman, swing clarinetist. Improvisation. Improvisation was, as it sounds, just making stuff up on the fly, which is why we got wings here. It was very popular in jazz, still is an essential element in jazz. Billie Holiday, iconic jazz slash blues vocalist. Jump blues. Jump blues is very upbeat, so we got a beat root here. Upbeat jazz. Miles Davis, influential jazz trumpeter. Doreen Ketchens, from New Orleans, clarinetist, very popular. We got swung rhythms slash swing. I got a puffer fish here. I really don't know why. I just felt like it went with swing. As opposed, a normal rhythm, a straight rhythm would be like one and two and three and four and, whereas a swing is going to be one, a two, a three, a four, and that's a very essential element in jazz. Wynton Marsalis, very, very smart, very educated jazz trumpeter. Um, and we have hard bop. This is going to be soulful, bluesy. It's like bebop, essentially. And we also have big band. Big band was very popular at the time. It was basically just a jazz band it was big. There was a lot of people in it. There was a lot of noise, and it was really cool. A lot of colleges and high schools still do kind of a big band style these days with their jazz band. We have crunchy chords and swung 16th notes. These were really new and weird things to people. So swung 16th is like swung ace, like the one a two, but it's on the 16th notes. It's it's a different type of swing. Crunchy chords are going to be where instead of notes being kind of nice and smooth, they're going to sound kind of harsh and weird, and they're going to have interesting resolutions. I'm actually just remembering. I think I forgot a part. Did I forget a part back here? I feel like there was something somewhere that I forgot. Um, did I? Oh yeah, right here. I knew there was something. So we have the introduction of harmonies in thirds. Instead of the, sorry for jumping around, but with the monophony where it was just everyone was singing one note, we now have people singing different notes. And again, I hope the volume works here. There you go. So you can hear kind of the notes are different, and they would sing those at the same time. And this is again back in the Renaissance period. So sorry for skipping it earlier. But yeah, back in Renaissance is where that kind of different harmonies came in. The 4-part harmony, people in four notes, and 5/1 cadence, which is musical concept that was brought about then. Anyway, so ignore that. We're gonna skip back to where we were through the ages again. All right, so we're out of jazz now and into kind of country, which also came about kind of the 20s and the 30s. We have some figures here. Yeah, 20s, 30s, and beyond. So you have Buck Owens, who actually wasn't even born until 1929. So country really, I mean, there's country music is very popular today still, and a lot of even the most popular country artists didn't come about until really even later, as I just said with Buck Owens, who wasn't even born till 1929. Hank Williams was known as Hillbilly Shakespeare, 'cause he had kind of a simple yet poetic way of writing. It's just kind of funny. Kitty Wells, popular country artist. Dolly Parton, obviously still very popular today, with Dollywood and everything else. Patsy Cline, popular country artist. We have mountain music, which was really a music of the people from the mountains. And it was a way where everyone could sing, whether you had a musical background or not, the way it was written. At least that was the idea of it. All right. So, rockabilly, the early predecessor of rock and roll, kind of the bridge between country and rock and roll. We'll just start with Elvis. So Elvis was, of course, I mean, obviously still super well known. He was kind of the face of rockabilly at the time to many people. So he's up on a gold stand here, and he had what was known as the Nashville sound, which was a very smooth, polished, kind of. There was one way to do it in Nashville, and that's how they wanted everyone to do it. Boogie rhythms were a big part of rockabilly. They were just easy rhythms that could be played throughout the whole song. Teenage audience. This is when music really started, becoming popular with young teens and even started to be really for young teens, as opposed to the working people, the older people. It was, concerts. A lot of these rockabilly concerts, such as the Highwaymen, would be full of teenagers, and that was cool. We have Willie Nelson. So these are all members of the Highwaymen, which was a country supergroup. These people all did things by themselves, but then they came together to kind of do some performances. Johnny Cash, he is said to, a lot of people consider him to really be the bridge between country and rockabilly. So Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and Waylon Jennings. They're all part of the Highwaymen. All right. Move on to soul, which is also kind of the 50s and 60s, kind of going on around the same time. And this was secular music in a sacred style. So a lot of soul was influenced by gospel, by church music, by this traditional African American music, and it was made for everyone, as we see over here, made by African Americans for African Americans. So it was a big cultural thing. I was kind of bringing these African American traditions to not totally the mainstream yet, but getting there. We have Ray Charles, big soul singer. We have Call and Response. These two dragons are, I don't know. Call and Response is the lead singer or the main person would sing something and everyone else would repeat it. Barry White and the Drifters didn't have enough space. The Drifters was a big group, so I made a horrible amalgamation of a bunch of people all standing in one spot, and that's the Drifters. They were a big soul group. Soul, soul. All right, moving on to Motown, 60s and 70s. Motown was polished and streamlined. That's why I used all polished blocks in here. Nice granites and andesites and whatever. And this was African American music for white people, as opposed to soul, which was African American music for African Americans. This was really bringing soul elements and African American styles to the mainstream. This is when we really got to the mainstream. Um, Motown gets its origin actually in Detroit, Motor Town, which is pretty cool. The Jackson Five were a big group at the time, where Michael Jackson came from, and they were signed with Motown, very popular. The Supremes were also a big Motown group. In fact, the most popular Motown group. Aretha Franklin uh, could have put her in soul, but she was around during the Motown time. She did not actually ever sign with Motown, the Motown label, but she was very popular around the time and had some kind of similar stuff going on. We have a lot of integration during this time, good stuff. But with especially with the this kind of African American music being popular with white audiences, it did help bridge the gap between whites and blacks in society in general. So a lot more integration with not only blacks and whites, but with women as well, and all that good stuff. All right, moving on to disco in the 70s. Whoa, we got a lot going on here. uh, so Saturday Night Fever. It was a movie that was very popular. It kind of really really defined disco and just the craze of it. And it also really is a good descriptor of kind of the disco scene. There was a fever for it. People were going crazy for disco. And it was a very fun, very cool place to be at a disco hall. Lots of lights, lots of cool colors. Let's see what we got going on here. We got Casey and the Sunshine Band. All right. I don't know if there are actually that many of them, but there was a fair number in the Casey and the Sunshine Band, very popular disco band. You could also say they were funk, but those two kind of blend a bit. You got synthesizers. Synthesizers were electronic noisemakers, essentially. And that really helped the disco sound, these electric noises. The DJ is introduced here. So, like in the disco halls, you'd have a guy who's up here kind of playing some good music, making everyone happy. We have what's going on here. ABBA. So, ABBA was a Swedish disco group, very popular songs, of course. Also, Euro disco, European disco was also very popular. Four to the Floor. So, Four to the Floor is referencing like four notes, especially on the bass drum, on every beat of the song. So it'd be boom, 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 boom. Every beat. One, two, three, four. It made it really easy to dance to. Really helped get people going in the disco era. I have a little demonstration. I hope it sounds good. So you can hear the two, three, four, one, two, three, four, two, three, four, one, two, three, four, one, two. Yeah, and you can kind of get that idea. Had a constant beat going. All right, move on here. Moving into I didn't even put the name of this. Let's do it right now. This is funk in the 70s and 80s. All right. Box of instruments. What's going on in here? Claves, bongos, gyro. That sounds like Latin percussion. Latin percussion was kind of really being introduced at this time into the mainstream music. It really helped set the sound for funk with these cool Latin instruments. We have Earth, Wind, and Fire, very popular funk band. You could also say they're all sorts of genres. We got them there. Put some stank on it. This was a saying during the time. It kind of is what defines the funk sound. It's real zany, real stanky. It's just got a lot going to it. It's cool. It's different. We have Tower of Power. That was a group at the time, popular funk group. James Brown, popular at the time. We have Ghost Notes, which were notes that weren't heard but were kind of played. Kind of interesting concept. Slap Bass. Well, that was easy. I slapped him so hard he disappeared. No, but slap bass was as we had walking bass earlier, we have slap bass now. And that was a real funky sound where you quite literally slap the bass strings. And it makes a nice kind of punchy funk sound. So that's that. And finally, moving on to our last category, hip hop. This was around, got its origins in the 80s, or I mean, anything you could say got its origins earlier. So hip hop was really popular in the 80s, 90s. And this is where we get a lot of modern ideas from, a lot of stuff that's really still relevant and listened to today. Let's see what we got going on here. We got graffiti. These are vines, but just pretend it's paint. Graffiti was kind of iconic of the image of hip hop, very urban landscape was the image of hip hop. Cities, New York, Los Angeles, that sort of thing were really, that was hip hop. That's where it got its origins. Breakdancing um, was kind of popular at the time of hip hop. It was doing all sorts of getting down on the floor, spinning around, maybe even spinning on your head. That was breakdance, and it was cool. We have the Sugar Hill Gang and Salt and Peppa, two very popular hip hop groups. Sugar Hill Gang, especially popular for releasing Rapper's Delight, which was considered one of the first major hip hop albums. It was really cool. We have Rap, uh, Cat, Bat, Hat. Just put three words that rhyme. Rap is, I'm sure you've all heard it. It's kind of fast singing or more talking and a lot of rhyming going on. So we got, as I just said, cat, bat, hat. Yeah, rap. Safe space. I don't know. Hip hop was a safe space for a lot of new ideas, a lot of interesting things. Uh, this way to get straight out of Compton. Uh, so Straight Outta Compton was somewhat considered to be the pinnacle of hip hop albums, or at least one of the most popular, influential. And that was released back in the day. White Flight was an idea at the time. White guys taking off. This was a lot of white people moving out of areas to get to a better area and leaving a lot of poor black communities behind. And these are communities where hip hop got a lot of its origins. Also, the MC emerging at the time, the hype man. MCs really were kind of at the heart of a lot of hip hop events, really kept it going. They were pretty cool. And I guess we will get straight out of Compton now. And that's it. After that brings us to post 2000, which is the modern day. And that is about all. But I'm wondering what one thing, uh, what was over here if there's nothing left? Oh, that makes sense.